space pilot, Mr. Cool Guy here. And, well, how's the weather down on Earth? I know for some of you it's cold. And for some of you down south or whatever, it could be either cold or it could be warm. Inconsistent weather. Don't you wish it'd be consistent? No. Out here in space, it's cold. I mean, not in the ship. The inside of the ship is kept warm. But if you were to be outside the ship, it'd be cold. Space is not warm. It is cold. Well, you ready, randoms? Because it's time once again for 10 random facts you may or may not know. Starting with fact number 1. Perfect pants. American sailor Larry Savadkin survived the sinking of the USS Tang off Taiwan during World War II by inflating his pants and using them as a life jacket. After reaching the ocean surface, he took off his pants and tied the legs and waist to fashion an impromptu life vest. That is crazy. Man. Survived on the ocean surface by using your pants as an impromptu life vest. That is... I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do to survive. That's some quick thinking. I mean, you gotta have more than just, combat skills and, sometimes a little bit of strength. When you're in the Army or the Navy, you gotta have smarts too, because you gotta know how to survive. Because if your plane goes down, your boat sinks. If you don't have the smarts to know how to survive out there, you're more than likely not going to survive. Because you don't know what to do outside of using the weapons. Right? You gotta be able to survive out there. Because if the bullet or bomb don't get you, then nature sure will. Man, that had to be... That he must have had nerves of steel. Being stuck out in the ocean, the middle of the ocean, not knowing if anyone else survived or if any help was coming, and he had to float out there by the seat of his pants, literally, and hope that rescue would come. Because even if he didn't drown, he would most likely die of starvation or dehydration. Because that salty ocean water is not really best for drinking. I'm sure if he got desperate enough, he'd probably risk it, but... Still. Yeah. Alrighty. Let's move on to fact number 2. Crochetmas tree. A group of 70 women in Lisbon, Portugal, with ages ranging from 11 to 88, crocheted a 55.7 foot tall, or 17-meter Christmas tree. The tree, which was the height of a 5-story apartment block, consisted of 7,200 squares of crochet. That's a tall tree, and it was knitted together by girls, moms, and grandmas. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, could you imagine? That's that's like that's grandma bragging rights right there, right? I mean, some parents brag about their children, right? But the grandmas that helped with the tree, they get to go, to their friends, their other grandma friends, right, who weren't there, ones they meet up with or play bridge with or whatever, and they get to tell them about how they helped crochet a 55.7-foot Christmas tree. Like, their friends, like her friends or whatever, the grandma's friends, are probably talking about, how they knitted a nice sweater for the grandchild. But then this one's like, oh, I helped crochet a 55.7-foot tall Christmas tree for the holidays. Right? I mean, it's impressive. That's impressive, and knitting takes skill and patience, right? Crocheting, knitting, because threading the needle is not easy. It is not an easy task. You don't have to have tried to know that. It's not easy. Right? Alrighty. Let's move on to fact number 3. Blindfold ball. 9-year-old Henry Speedwell, a student at Mount Greenwood Elementary School in Chicago, dribbled a basketball for 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 1 second while wearing a blindfold. Dang. That's crazy. And I'm sure some of you are probably thinking like, how is that really impressive that he did it blindfolded? Well, he can't see where the ball is. Well, yeah, but he's just dribbling it, so it should be easy to know where it is. No. Just because you're dribbling it doesn't mean it's easy. He's blindfolded. He can't be watching to see where he dribbles the ball, because he's got to make sure the ball dribbles at just the right spot where he can catch it with his hand and keep doing the dribble. Right? Because at any point, it could have bounced off slightly enough to where the whole thing gets messed up and he doesn't know, and he tries to, with his hand, and it might catch in another dribble, but it's off. So it'll come out of the movement, and then the whole thing just is ruined. It stops there because he missed the timing on a dribble, or it landed slightly off from where it's supposed to, messing the whole thing up. Right? I mean, he did it for 1 hour, 20 minutes, and 1 second. Even not blindfolded, that would be impressive. But it's a bit more impressive because he did it blindfolded. That's some pretty good skill, if you ask me. Alrighty. Let's move on to fact number 4. Canyon crossing. 91-year-old John Jepkema crossed the Grand Canyon rim to rim on foot, completing the 24-mile or 38-kilometer trek in 5 days. He started on the north rim and descended 6,000 feet or 1,829 meters to the bottom of the canyon before climbing 4,500 feet or 1,372 meters to the south rim. That is... That is pretty wild. That guy is living life to the fullest. 91 years old. And he crossed the Grand Canyon, rim to rim, on foot. Mm-mm-mm. That is one stubborn old person, right? You know, usually it's as you get older, doing things like that are harder to do. But he's like, oh yeah? Watch me. Right? That's a crazy story to tell your grandkids. Right? You know, I recently crossed the Grand Canyon rim to rim, which I know shouldn't seem possible at my age. But you can do anything if you put your mind to it. Right? Mm-mm-mm. That had to feel pretty amazing when he reached the end of his journey across the Grand Canyon rim. Alrighty. Let's move on to fact number 5. Gabriella Gerhardt from Wisconsin has a collection of nearly 119,000 four-leaf clovers, which she has been seeking out since 2010. Gabriella also has more than 1,400 six-leaf clovers and 200 seven-leaf clovers. Dang, that's a lot of four-leaf clovers. And there's six-leaf clovers and seven-leaf clovers? Dang. Whoever finds those must feel even luckier than when they find four-leaf clovers. Right? They must feel pretty amazing, right? Because, you know, it's one thing to find a four-leaf clover, but here you found a six-leaf clover, or a seven-leaf clover. Those feel like they'd be pretty rare, right? Like, it's one thing to find a penny on the sidewalk, right? Oh wow, a lucky penny, right? But then you find one of them, like, wow, a six-leaf clover, right? It's the unique things that you see out there that make it worth it, right? Man. But that's a lot of leaves, or clovers. But that's also a lot of leaves too, technically. She probably has quite a few books with pressed clovers. Oh man. Alrighty. Let's move on to fact number 6. Sticky skin. Jamie Keaton of Kenosha, Wisconsin is able to stick 10 cans to his head simultaneously using only air suction. Objects such as water bottles, pencils, and cell phones stick to his skin because his skin absorbs more oxygen than most people's. In fact, his oxygen levels are 23% higher than average. That is crazy, my man. Like, that is quite the sticky skin. I mean, you've seen the thing of where people stick a spoon to their nose, right? It just stays there. Man, this guy can stick at just about anything to his head, right? I mean, obviously there's some things he couldn't because they'd be too big, you know, like an elephant or a giraffe or a turkey, a whole turkey, right? um Could you imagine a whole turkey just stuck to your head? the Thanksgiving fashion. Alrighty, let's move on to fact number 7. Touching tech. Fabric, air, and computers have been combined to create huge, huggable robots. The soft robots are interactive and can show different moods. Some are as tall as a 2-story building. They were made by air giants in the Bristol Interaction Group. The robots' movements are made by changing the amount of air in their bodies. Since they don't have any hard or dangerous parts, the lifelike creatures are safe for people of all ages and abilities to touch and play with. That is crazy. Huggable robots. So like Baymax. That has to, feel at least a little nice, or, that's probably at least cool. Right, That's wild. Soft robots. Who would have thought you could make robots out of soft material? Wow, that is... Alright, then. That's... Well, more power to you. Anyways, let's move on to fact number 8. Seaside skeleton. There's a 426.5 foot long, or 130 meter metal snake skeleton on a beach in France. Titled Serpent the Ocean, the slithering sculpture was created by Chinese artist Huang Yongping. It looks as if it's rising and sinking with the ocean's waves, like a real sea creature. The giant piece of art isn't just for looks, though. The Serpent the Ocean was also made as a reminder to take care of our oceans and the animals living in them. That is crazy. Man. A 426.5 foot long metal snake skeleton. It's an impressive sculpture. Right, but if I hadn't given the second half of that fact, if I had made a long enough pause, you probably would have thought that there was a real metal snake skeleton, that it wasn't fake. I probably could have got you, but I didn't, because I didn't pause long enough. I almost did. I could have got you. Gosh. But yeah, that's a good point. That is a good reminder. Take care of the oceans and the animals living in them. Just because you don't live in the ocean, underwater, doesn't mean you should just ruin the ocean just because you don't live in it. It's like when you go into someone else's house. Don't make a giant mess and just ruin everything or whatever just because it is in your house. You wouldn't do it in your own house, so don't do it in someone else's house. If you do make a mess or whatever, help clean it up. I mean, yes, it's their house, but you kind of help to make it. If you clean up your little part of the mess, then be nice and offer to help, Right? Alrighty, let's move on to fact number 9. Lost ring. In 2017, Joey Likens lost his nose piercing, only to find it 5 years later lodged in his left lung. He went to the hospital with a bad cough, and an X-ray showed the cause. His missing septum ring was stuck in his lung. It had probably fallen off while he was asleep, and he unknowingly inhaled it. Huh? How? How? I'm sorry. 5 years. There is no way it took 5 years for it finally to cause problems. It had been sitting in his lung for 5 years. There's no way it took 5 years for it to finally do something to where he'd go get it checked out. Right? If it actually took 5 years for it to actually start causing problems, then okay, I'm not sure why it took that long. Or B, it did cause problems, but he just waited 5 years because that means either he just didn't bother to get it checked out for 5 years because he assumed it was one thing, or B, they didn't bother to check his lungs for 5 years to see what was causing the problem, they being the doctors, in which case either way it's bad. But like, the second thing, it fell off, and it probably fell off and he inhaled it. Most likely to that. If it did fall off while he was sleeping, he would have to be on his side for that to happen. If he was laying on his back, I mean, okay, if he's laying on his back, then, well, no, it couldn't. Because when they pierce your nose, it doesn't go whoo, it goes in through the nose, and then it pierces through the inside, like in the middle part here, and then comes out the other side. So it's like whoop, not whoop. So it couldn't fall out, right? Unless you're saying somehow it got jostled loose in a way to where one side started going whoop whoop whoop, to where it could be like this. But even then, how would he have inhaled it? Would have had to have somehow fell out his nose and rolled down enough for it to fall into his mouth. But even then, it probably would have hit the back of the throat, and he should have felt that, right? And then it couldn't just roll down to the lungs because he'd be lying flat. Unless it did hit the back of the throat while he was sleeping, it woke him up, and then it fell into the lungs because of gravity, because he would have went, and he would have been sitting up. Otherwise, I don't know how he could have inhaled it. Because it couldn't have happened through the nose. Because there's a little thingy right here that would have blocked it. So, I don't... Right? I'm sure you're just as confused as I am. Let's just move on to fact number 10. Baby mix-up. Jim Mitchell and Margaret Rafferty were briefly mixed up as babies at a hospital at Lennoxtown, Scotland in 1952. Nurses handed them to the wrong mothers, both of whom were called Margaret. They went on to lead separate lives for 18 years until they met again when two of their friends married each other. Jim asked Margaret out at the wedding reception, and 2 years later, in 1972, they got married. In 2022, they celebrated their golden wedding anniversary. That is crazy. That is some wild circumstances. You get accidentally switched at birth because your mothers just happen to have the same name. And then, you get friends who are friends with each other, right? And they get married, and you two happen to meet, then you get married, like 2 years later, right? And obviously you went out and formed a relationship in that time, but that is some wild circumstances, right? It's just crazy how certain things happen to just fall into place in a way that's as wild as that, you know? That's why you gotta cherish each moment. Because all your decisions will lead to great moments. And sure, sometimes it leads to some not great moments. But that's just how it goes. Right? That is some crazy circumstances. Well, there you have it. There was 10 random facts you may or may not have known, but you know now. Were there any that you knew? If so, let me know down below, Joe. If you have any additional information on the facts, then, feel free to put that down there too. Who knows, other people might find it interesting. I know I might. If you don't know what to say, and all you can say is hi, well, hi. If you enjoyed, leave a like. If you don't have to constantly search up my name to check for a new match, subscribe. It'll just be there in your subscriptions feed. And you could hit the notification bell so it'll let you know the second there's a new batch of 10 random facts that you can hear about and learn about. Right? I mean, you don't have to hit the notification bell, but if you don't want to check your subscription feed every couple hours or whatever, then hit the notification bell. And make sure to share this with others. Don't hog all the facts to yourself. They're meant to be shared. They're meant for multiple people to hear. So share it with people you know, so they have the chance to hear it too. Don't just keep them to yourself. They're not just for you, you facts hog. Space dust. Anyways, I'm Space Pilot Mr. Cool Guy, and as I always say, my fellow randoms, to infinity and more facts.
Only humans could lose a piece of metal in their own lungs and call it a mix-up. Just subscribe. The cosmos could use the laugh.